being in the playoffs feels good. It is good to be in the playoffs. Being in the playoffs is a good feeling. But there are 4 more games left. And like I said with my last video, I saw Minnesota lost today and Dallas won. It was a close win, but they won. I still think that we can only afford to lose 1 more game. And if the Eagles beat Dallas, they could afford to lose 2. They need to beat Dallas. Dallas is a very important game to win. But I think that they can only afford to lose 1 more game. And the whole thing about the playoffs is the fact that if you clinch, right, a lot of teams kind of just are like, whatever, we clinched. We're going to the playoffs. We have a chance. They always say that once you get to the playoffs, I think it was John Harbaugh who really made this kind of a saying. Once you get into the playoffs, your record's 0-0. Records do not matter in the playoffs at all. And you really need to make sure. Now, there are 2 ways to get into the playoffs, right? You either run into the playoffs or you back into the playoffs. Running into the playoffs basically means you're winning your games in December. You're winning your games in December and you're doing well. Backing into the playoffs is like, I won a lot of games and I clinched the playoffs, or I might have clinched the division, but now I'm kind of just like, whatever. Maybe I bench the starters. Maybe we lose a few games on purpose. I've seen the Eagles do both. And what I've noticed is there really isn't much of a correlation between doing either. I remember 2004 and 2017 where the Eagles really took the last 2 or 3 games off, and then once they got into the playoffs, they were money, they were fire. And then I've seen times where the Eagles need to win every game in December, and they flop. The first game, they're 1 and done. Boom, done, 1 and done in the playoffs. So I've seen both happen. And a lot of people say, oh, you got to win. You got to do well in December to do well in the playoffs. There is no correlation. There is no correlation at all. Sometimes you're like the Baltimore Ravens, where they were like 1 and 4 in December. they won the Super Bowl in 2012 or 2013. So it doesn't matter, but my personal philosophy is I want to do well. You want to win as many games as you can, whether you dominate or not. We haven't won the division yet. The Eagles have not won the division. They've had a few injuries. They need to do well, right? You want to have the respect of the rest of the teams in the league. Not necessarily the media, because I don't really care that much about whether or not the Eagles, what the media thinks about the team. But I feel like you definitely want to run into the playoffs and not back into the playoffs. And, again, you need to continue to have that mindset of anything can happen, right? We need to continue to be humble. You need to continue to play well. You need to continue to be the best team that you can be. You need to continue to improve. Be the best team that you can be. Because that is how you are going to do well, in my opinion, in postseason, even though it doesn't have anything to do with that. It honestly doesn't. You could do really well during the end of the season and flop in the playoffs, or you could do at the very end of the season, have that mindset that we're the best, whatever, and then you do really well during the postseason. So it doesn't really matter, but I always my personal philosophy is to always do well at the end of the season, have that understanding that, you know what, we can get better, keep grinding, and see how successful you are there.